Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Sansone. I'm a psychotherapist opposed to psychopathic authoritarianism. This is Mind Matters and Everything Else. I'm very happy to have on tonight Rachel Jones Keshel. She introduced the Sansone Emory Bioweapons Prohibition Act in Arizona, the great state of Arizona. Rachel, before we get started, can you give your website and everything? When are you up for re-election, by the way?
Well, 26 here in Arizona, we do two session terms. So every 2 years, we're doing this rat race again. So
Yep.
yeah,
Okay. So give your website so people can support you.
perfect. So yeah, it's just Keshel for FOR Arizona. That's my website. Do you want me to give my social media? I have that too.
Yeah, give it all. Give it all. Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to follow me on X, I'm at uppercase R, uppercase J, the number four, lowercase Arizona. So at RJ for Arizona. You can find me as Rachel Jones Keshel on Facebook. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here with you, Doctor.
Well, thanks. I gotta commend you because so it's interesting, and I'm trying to get this bill introduced in other states, and I have some leads. In fact, I'm supposed to do a Zoom meeting tomorrow morning with a senator from a different state. But it's
Oh.
interesting because both you and Shane Mecklin, like I had to do zero effort to convince you. It was kind of like, yeah, definitely, and that's how he was. So, what is the climate in Arizona now? I know I don't think it was in 2024 because I reached out to Dan Schultz, who a lot of people know from precinctstrategy.com, and I got him to introduce my ban the jab resolution, and that passed with like 95% at your state convention. Is that reflective of your party there as a whole, or is there a disconnect between the grassroots and the party?
Yeah, there probably is a little bit of a disconnect. So, just to give you my background, when I was running in 21, my very first go round, I really got involved with the whole COVID catastrophe. When I was campaigning, I was newbie, I was grassroots, not very involved before other than screaming at the television, being mad all the time in the political world. So I was running for office, running in the House, and people started reaching out to me because their elected officials in my district were not helping with the COVID stuff. They were telling them to wear the damn mask.
Mhm.
People were being forced to get the jab. And so people started reaching out to me as a candidate, and I started holding town halls and was helping people do their medical exemptions and their religious exemptions. And that was just, it was a very emotional time period. I had a lot of people coming to me in tears, people who had already felt forced to get the first COVID shot because they wanted to keep their jobs and they were experiencing heart issues. And, I didn't even think about campaigning because I was just trying to do what was right. I was driving all the way to Yuma to hold these town halls. And so it was just kind of a natural thing, kind of as I went into the legislature, winning as the underdog in 22. And I did feel a disconnect from what the people were saying, what constituents were saying, and all the probably thousands of people that we ended up helping as candidates to when I got to the legislature. And some of my colleagues were just a little bit nervous or scared to talk about the jab, to talk about COVID. And unfortunately, we'll see if your bill gets any traction. At this point in time, it's not even been assigned to a committee. So I'm
Yeah, right,
hoping
exactly.
and I'll be pushing, but I do think there's a disconnect.
Now, what's the time frame? You have to have someone in the Senate jump on board too, right? How long do you have for that?
Well, so how it works in Arizona, you've got to get the bill assigned to a committee in the House, and then it's heard in committee. Any amendments that are needed, or you have to get the votes to get it out of committee. Then it goes to the House floor. It's heard by the entire legislature, so the Democrats and the Republicans, and then it comes to a vote on the floor. And then if you can get at least 31 yeses on the floor, it then moves to the Senate and goes through the same process.
Oh, I see. So you don't have like a co-sponsor in the Senate like some other states do. Okay. All right. So what we need is we need a lot of people here to be calling their representatives in Arizona to tell them to support this bill,
Yes.
so they can stop killing the little kids that they're still giving these shots to, and just people in general. It's honestly, it's kind of amazing that at this point we're still actually trying to get these shots off the market. And I, by the way, I know there's like people watching right now saying like there's no need for the bill. I get it. These shots are already illegal. That's the point of the bill. It's pointing out that they're already illegal. These are
Right.
weapons. They violate state and federal bioweapons laws, and I have affidavit from the law professor who wrote the law saying that. So it's just we're in this upside down world here. And people should know that you've been very active on election integrity too,
Yeah.
and a lot of the issues that grassroots activists care about. And you're also a member of the Arizona Freedom Caucus, right?
I am. Yep. I'm not very well liked by a lot of my colleagues for all of that, but I'm here to take the arrows from my constituents and I don't mind. Didn't go into politics to make friends. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think offense is the best defense when it comes to this type of thing, because everybody wants to kind of sit back and try to play it safe. And it's like, what's the practical, rational reaction when most people we know have been poisoned?
I mean, obviously, the rational explanation is we've got to address it head on, like you're saying, and we've got to figure this out because the evidence is there. That's the
Mhm.
thing, when this started coming out, of course, you always get told to take your tinfoil hat off with some of the stuff, but then the evidence was actually backing up what what everyone was saying was so dangerous about this. Now we have RFK out there saying the same thing about mRNA, people like Dr. Peter McCullough, all of these people that have been on the front lines, people who have seen the evidence. I mean, I've seen personally for me, when you talk about the shedding from these vaccines and things like that, I was very adamant about making sure that my 5 children, that jab came nowhere near them. And my daughter was surrounded by high school friends that were shedding those spike proteins all over her and she got very sick from it. So that stuff is real. I saw it with my own daughter. It completely threw her cycle off. It was crazy, and I knew exactly what it was coming from. And so, just all the stories you hear, kids my daughter's age, healthy young athletes dropping dead from heart attacks. I mean, it was all so obvious. And that's, like you said, why I'm just shocked that people are continuing to push these things and not understand that the evidence is there.
Well, and I know from anecdotally from people I know, and even talking to medical doctors, like, people that were unvaccinated, but their boyfriend or girlfriend got the shot or husband, and then next thing you know, they
Mhm.
got a heart problem. So it's very clear that intimate relationships, there's some type of transmission that's occurring. So I mean, like young people, that's like got to be the biggest thing I'd worry about if I were like young and singles, like make sure someone I'm dating is unvaccinated. And by the way, like, I don't want people to think I'm beating up on people that got the shot because most of them were coerced. They're all lied to. And the thing is that they're actually the most susceptible to the continued distribution of the shots because of the shedding. I like to call it involuntary environmental exposure because they've got many of them have damaged immune systems. Like the preliminary data from Dr. Avila's research here in Florida at her clinic, and it was mentioned in that paper, COVID-19 harms and damages, the one that clearly states that the quote unquote vaccine violated the Biological Weapons Convention. But she's showing in there that 74% of the people that were injected with the COVID shot have damaged immune systems, like to some degree, even if they're asymptomatic. And so, unfortunately, that's going to over time develop into chronic disease and illness. And that's why it gets me because, like, say if you're 35 years old and you got this shot, and you only live to be 63, well, they just stole 17 years off your life. That's murder.
Right.
And so one of the things, and I find this really baffling, maybe you can help me with this, is I don't understand the complacency because most people we know are going to have a shortened lifespan because of these shots. I'm not saying they're going to die tomorrow or something like that, but can you explain the complacency?
I wish I could. I mean, when you mention that most people were coerced, I mean, that's what I was seeing when I was helping a lot of people. I mean, I'll tell you one story about a federal employee. I think he was a National Guard member and he worked for one of I don't know if it was Raytheon or a federal agency, but his wife begged him not to get it. But he was sitting here looking at a wife and daughters, and he snuck away and got it and he came to me at a rally and he said, and now I have permanent heart damage from this. And so that alone makes this a bioweapon. The fact
Yeah.
that people were coerced, and their jobs were threatened. We saw it happen in the medical field. The complacency, I think so many of us for so many years were told vaccines are safe and effective. I unfortunately was not aware before 2020. I just trusted my medical professional. And if I could go back now, I would never ever have my children vaccinated. But that's the sad thing is I think we were very uninformed, and I don't know if some people are just having a hard time letting go of what we were told for so long, and they still want to trust that most doctors are trying to do right by them. I don't know what the complacency is. It's very sad though, and I do think we've already started to see the repercussions of what that shot did to people. I think all of us personally know someone that has been affected by it, unfortunately, and now regrets ever having
Right.
taken it. So,
And what's also like, I guess, somewhat disturbing is, and I guess it's just such an ugly truth to look at, so people don't want to look at it. But I
yeah,
mean, the problem is that's not going to make the chronic illnesses go away. Like, we need to address this and try to find a way to mitigate the damage. But first, we got to admit what
right.
they did and find out what they did because nobody really knows what's in these shots. But
That's
it's
one of the problems is we weren't even informed or told what, like you said, what ingredients were in the shot. They were hiding that information. They were hiding all the factual data, on the VAERS website. I mean, it was criminal and still continues to be what was done to us.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's continuing. So it really, at this point, I feel it removes all plausible deniability for everybody because it's like, the bottom line is, and obviously the federal government is wrong because they're continuing to do it, but the states, I hate to use the word, but the states still technically have police power over public health. The states
Mhm.
are facilitating this because every state can pull these because they're dangerous. Like we've done it before in Florida, like back in 1997 with fen-phen, they pulled it off the market and that led to the national recall. So states have pulled federal products or medical products off the market because they're harmful. And certainly every state has a weapons of mass destruction law. When you look at these fit the criteria of it. I mean, they're causing disease, disability, and death, even a negative effectiveness, not let alone not working. And what's somewhat disturbing is we're seeing people getting sick, and
Mhm.
we know why they're getting sick, and they do not.
Right,
That's
right.
difficult because sometimes it's difficult to have the conversation, and I guess it depends on your relationship with the person if you can do that. But I see people
Mhm.
getting sick, and I know why they're getting sick.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, last week I think it was government committee, it was one of my committees, we had a bill. Representative Lisa Fink is really big on the medical freedom stuff, and she had a bill about the jabs and vaccines, and we've had multiple bills move through the legislature based on this because that was such a big issue going into the 22 election, I think, after COVID. And these people come in and they just continue to say they're safe and effective. Look at all this information. And I don't know. It's just there's a huge disconnect. And people, I guess it depends on where they get their information from, and there's still just a lot of disinformation out there that people are believing. And it's sad. I'm very fortunate my parents knew, they saw through it, so I don't have to worry about them. They didn't get the jabs, and most of my loved ones didn't. But friends and people like that, I do have some of those that got it, and friends who have family members that have either passed away. We met a gentleman from Raytheon that was trying to come to us for help to get a medical or religious exemption. He just kind of panicked, ended up getting the jab, and he was dead 3 weeks later. So we saw that in real time when we were helping people with this, and that's devastating. You're just wishing he'd hung in a little bit longer, and because most of the people we met from there kept their jobs with those exemptions. So,
Yeah, that's horrible. And I actually think that the people dying like that, I don't think it was designed to work that way. I think it was designed to work slower like it is now with people, because even
probably.
now people don't connect the dots. Imagine if we didn't have the died suddenly phenomenon, like nobody would even believe us. And like the Japanese data, they had a big project there several months ago when they did that international press conference, and they had about 610,000 excess deaths. And if you were to translate that to the US, like population wise, that would be an underreporting factor of 41 on the VAERS database. So that would give us like about 1,558,000 people that died. But that's not the people that are getting sick now and dying. Like
No,
that's just shortly afterwards. So um it's just I don't know how to say it. It's immoral not to do something.
it is absolutely. And that's why, when you said you didn't hesitate when I asked you to run the bill, of course I didn't, because I've seen what this is for what it is from the very beginning, from the very get-go. And nobody, the biggest point is nobody should be forced to inject something into their body. I mean, that you should have body
That's a no-brainer.
sovereignty
Yeah,
as an
that's a no-brainer.
American. Yeah.
My only thing is like when you're talking about these mRNA nanoparticle injections, mandates is kind of a, I don't want to say psyop, well, maybe a psyop, I don't know, because it's like debating whether we're going to mandate and maybe it's because I specialize in clinical hypnosis, debating whether you're going to mandate a bioweapon or not. There's an embedded command in there that it's okay to hit you with a bioweapon. So
Right.
it's like that. I think that's why like it's like an attorney going after the other side's strongest argument. I think that if we see more bills popping up like this, that are, this one has life imprisonment if death results. If we start seeing bills popping up like this with these kind of penalties, at some point, I think the federal government's going to back off,
Yeah.
or
Oh, for
or,
sure.
or a governor or attorney general is just going to do their job and actually enforce the law. And that's
Yeah.
why, like, I'd encourage. We need people to not just in Arizona. People need to flood the phones in Arizona to get this bill moved forward. But we
Yeah.
need people in other states to reach out to their legislators and get them to introduce a version of this bill there because there's a cumulative effect.
Oh,
If we can get like 10 or 12 states to introduce this bill, and all of a sudden you got 10 or 12 states like with a bill saying that this is a bioweapon, it's going to be hard for them not to, maybe they'll pretend they're not there. I don't know, because the world we're living in, like,
yeah.
if the forest burns down and nobody reports it, did it happen?
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head with accountability. Right now you can't, no one, whether it's big pharma, the governments are held accountable for this, or someone can't even, go and get compensation for this doing harm to them at this point in time. So I agree with you. If you put this out there that there are going to be penalties for someone pushing this, I think you will start to get the attention of certain individuals within the government. And so, yeah, that's why I was thrilled to run it. And I think so many people are going to be left with just irreparable harm from these, and they at this point can't even do anything about it to try to make it right what occurred, and that's
Well,
just wrong.
if for within the Republican Party framework, it's like we're fighting the Epstein wing of the GOP. It's like
Yeah.
these billionaires and stuff are not, nobody's getting like arrested for what they did with Epstein and all that stuff. We got these files coming out and like, I think Thomas Massey said it best, until we see these rich people doing the purple walk, there's no accountability, right? And
Mhm.
it's the same thing with the shots because it's,
Mhm.
so if you or I commit a crime, we're going to get cuffed and taken right down right away. But you've got these big institutions, whether hospital systems killing people with the remdesivir, or
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical companies and the pharmacies pushing these deadly bioweapon injections. They have absolutely zero accountability at this point. Like the myth of the
Yeah.
constitutional sheriff, I think, is like totally BS.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I,
because they're whether you're talking about this or election integrity, they had the power, the
right.
sheriffs, to go in, get, whatever they needed to prove there was election fraud going on. Same with the shots, and they didn't. So that's where, I mean, I completely backed the blue, but there were moments during COVID where I lost a little bit of faith because they were not upholding their oath to the
Right.
Constitution and serving the people. They were serving the master, whoever that is up above. And it was just a little bit disheartening to see that happen.
Yeah, and that was part of one of Dr. Francis Boyle's. He passed away just over a year ago, but that was one of his arguments. Is all you needed really was a county prosecutor and a county sheriff to indict somebody with these
Yep.
injections, and the whole house of cards would fall down. And that's kind
Yep.
of the strategy here. If we can get a jurisdiction to recognize that these actually are weapons in violation of the law, the whole thing's going to blow up.
Yeah. Yep. That's
And,
what we
and
need.
So what is there, what is the best way for people to like contact legislators in Arizona? Is there like a website they can go to, like the legislative website? Like what's the best place where they can see who their representatives is so they can contact them to support this?
Well, so we have something called RTS. It's called Request to Speak that they can sign up for, and they can go in and give a thumbs up, thumbs down to bills. They can send emails through that. The website for the Arizona legislature is just Arizona Leg, so azleg.gov, and they can find any member on there. The chairwoman of the Health and Human Services Committee is Selena Bliss, so they need to actually look her up. Her email is going to be Bliss, BLISS at arizonaledge.gov. I would just send her a bunch of emails that they want to hear the bill. They want the bill to at least get a fair hearing, in committee. That would be a good place to start. But it's also up to the speaker to assign the bill to a committee. So the speaker is Speaker Steve Montenegro. So that would be S Montenegro, Montenegro at arizonaledge.gov. So I would just contact those folks to start with. We are down to a couple of weeks of hearings in the House, and then all the bills cross over to the Senate. So we are kind of crunched for time. But as you saw, the legislative council who drafts the bills were really dragging their feet on our bill. And I think that was very intentional. So
Yeah, so I want people to know this took about a month because
at least,
they were butching it and then making changes. So we had to keep going back and forth with it. And people should know that you were working on this on New Year's Day.
yeah.
So they need to know that. So what I'm going to do is below I'm going to link to the Arizona legislature, and we need people to kind of politely bombard the Arizona legislature to have this bill heard. And what's the time frame for it to go through committee? Like how much time is there?
She has two committees left, so we've got to start right away on this. I would also use the phone. Legislators, when their assistants get bombarded with phone calls, the assistant gets very kind of not upset, but a little bit stressed out, and that kind of pours over onto the legislature or legislator. So I would recommend making phone calls too, to both the speaker and Representative Selena Bliss, and emails, get those emails going to them as well. So
And can you just
if
say their
the
names
pressure
again
does
so I
work,
can you say them
yep.
again so I can write these down? Speaker.
As Speaker Steve Montenegro, Montenegro,
Okay.
and then Representative Selena, Selina, and then Bliss, Bliss.
All right, perfect, because I'll have that below the video. And so we need people to do two things right now. We need them to bombard the legislature, especially these two the reps that you mentioned here, to get this bill moving forward. And we also need them to reach out to legislators in other states to get a version of this bill presented. And the simplest way for them to do that, for if you're watching right now, is you can go on ChatGPT or Grok and just ask who your top health freedom legislators are in your state, and just ask for their contact info and just start there. That's honestly what I did with all 50 states, and I got like 12 people interested. So, but whether that turns into something or not is different because my experience has been usually they jump on it. So
Yeah.
they usually don't have to think about it if you're on it, but we'll see. Rachel, you're the best. I say that to everybody. Doesn't mean it's not true, but in your case, it might actually be true.
Well,
Um,
thank you. I
uh,
appreciate it. You were the brains behind the bill, so.
well, that's scary right there. Wow. So I do like to say I'm like the Forrest Gump of PhDs, just a little below average. But thank you. I really appreciate you and your courage and your integrity and the fact that you actually care that your friends and neighbors are being murdered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it very much. I'm honored to have been your conduit to get this legislation going in Arizona. And if we don't get it this time, we'll run it again next time.
Yeah, we keep going until we win or they kill us.
Right. Well, I hope not. I hope we win
Yeah,
first. So,
yeah. Yeah, win and then you kill me. Okay, that's all right. All right. Thank you.
all right. Thanks, Dr. Joe.